Moments ago, National Security Advisor John Bolton putting Venezuelan President Maduro on notice, accusing him of stealing from his own people as the country faces its worst economic crisis in history.
Well, look, the Maduro regime has been ripping off the Venezuelan people since it's been in power. We want a peaceful transfer of power from Maduro to Juan Guaido. So we think increased pressure against Maduro and his clique is the way to help the Venezuelan opposition get that peaceful transition of power.
Wow, our next guest has been spotlighting the crisis since it began, GOP Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, I know the president really is letting you take the lead on this in many respects. What is the next step to putting pressure on Maduro? Because he seems like he's still got the military.
Yeah, let me tell you something about that, the first thing you just said, and I'm honored you would say it, but the actuality of this is the president has been aggressive about this from day one. None of this would have been possible without it. And, you know, Maduro thinks he's going to wait out Donald Trump. Look, I've been on the president's good side, I've been on his bad side, I've been in the, a little bit of both. When this guy's on, when the president's on something, it's like a dog on a bone. I mean, he will not let go. He is never going to give up on this until Maduro's out of there. Maduro's taken on a terrible enemy in Donald Trump, and the president and his administration deserves tremendous credit. And the Maduro regime is not a government. They are a mafia. You have to think of them as an organized crime ring, and everybody around Maduro is a criminal. Drug traffickers, they make money by trafficking cocaine into the United States. They're stealing gold both out of the ground and from the nation's reserves and making money off of that. I mean, every crime you can imagine, they're engaged in. And so you break them the way you break an organized crime ring. You put pressure on all of them until these thieves and these criminals that have no honor, they start turning on each other. Let me tell you this, every single prominent official in Venezuela, with the absence of Maduro, has reached out to somebody looking for a deal. That is a fact. That they haven't taken one yet doesn't mean they won't at some point. These are not good people. They're thieves, they're liars, they're crooks, right. And ultimately they'll turn on each other. And we got to keep the pressure on, and the president and his administration is doing a tremendous job of bringing together an international coalition. You know, 54 countries are involved in this, not just the U.S. 54 countries, including all of Latin America, basically.
But they still have the guns, and they stop you from giving humanitarian aid, but you do say that they only have days left of food and energy?
Yeah, so Venezuela, because they keep stealing all this money, they are about to hit an epic humanitarian crisis we haven't seen in this hemisphere, and they haven't faced there. They probably have less than a week of gasoline left. Now, you know, so there's an Indian company out there that's helping them, and of course the Russians, and that's very unfortunate that they keep giving these guys a lifeline. But they have just a few days of gasoline left, and they have only a few days of food left. The humanitarian crisis is real, and when people ask me why should we care, 10% of Venezuela's population has abandoned the country in the last 5 years. Another 2 million people are going to leave this year, and it is creating it threatens to collapse Colombia and potentially Peru and Ecuador as well. Nobody can handle taking in 1.5 million people like that the way Colombia already has done. So this is a regional crisis that ultimately is going to impact us.
And Senator, real quick about what's going on the border. You were in the gang to try to solve this in a bipartisan way. Now we're in a situation where almost everybody agrees it's a humanitarian disaster and drugs are flowing there. Are you going to back the president's initiative to use emergency action at the border?
Yeah, so the president has 3 ways he wants to pay for it. The first 2 are not problematic at all. He wants to use the anti-drug money, he wants to use the forfeiture fund, and if he takes those 2 funds and the money that we already appropriated in the budget that even the Democrats agreed to, he gets to 5.7. He can do it that way, and that's what I think he should do. The third one is the one that's problematic because it actually goes after military construction. And I'm just telling you, we just can't afford to cut back funding. For example, in Florida, we've got a bunch of military facilities. Some of them are crumbling. We cannot let them crumble. So I hope we can avoid using that third pot of money. That's the one that's complicated and problematic because the president can get all the money he needs, the $5.7 billion, from the first 2 pots, and those are not even controversial. I mean, the Democrats don't like it because they don't believe there's a border crisis, but there is. And you saw the numbers yesterday. Even the New York Times yesterday reported that the numbers are out of control. And you've got children and families. I mean, just from a humanitarian standpoint, we should care about what's happening there.
The New York Times wrote it as humanitarian. Has anyone on the other side reached out to you, even below the radar, and said, let's try to work on something together, or no?
No, because, they just now they're just trapped. I mean, a lot of them are trapped. They can't. They step out of line. Look what's happening in the House now with the whole anti-Semitism thing, and all of a sudden everybody is running for the hills on it, and they don't want to take a vote on it because there's this new element, radical element, that's gone into the Democratic Party that's moved them away from supporting Israel and makes it impossible for them to admit there's a crisis on the border.
Senator Marco Rubio, a very busy guy these days. Thanks so much for joining us, Senator.
Thank you very much.